Hello everyone, welcome to Kishore Chess Mentor. In today's section, we shall see the game between Magnus Carlsen and Firouzja, which was played in the round 1 of Tata Steel Masters tournament. And white is Carlsen and black is Firouzja. So this game is important for so many reasons because it is kind of a brilliant game. Okay, so I mean like white has sacrificed 2 pawns, and in return he has crushed his opponent. So the game starts with d4, e5, and so here after a series of exchanges, bishop into, and then say knight into pawn into, so bishop d3, c5. So in this particular position he played castles, pawn into, pawn into. So right now there is a pawn which is quite isolated, so he played b6 in order to develop the bishop on b7, so pawn to a4. So he is trying to eliminate his isolated weak pawn, and he is trying to create some threats on the a7 pawn, which is going to be isolated after the exchange of the pawns. So bishop b7. So meanwhile what black is trying to do is that black is trying to see, let's say there is a pawn on d4 and e4. So both of them are not being supported by any of the other pawns, so there can be a chance that it can be attacked, and he has started to do that. So bishop b7, a5, pawn into, rook into. So here knight f6, and then there is a threat on e4. So in case like if the e pawn moves to e5, then he can take a hold on the d5 square, and the d4 pawn, I mean like it will be pretty weak. So there will be an outpost for the knight. So here what happens is rook e1, and now there is one more thing that which he is trying to do. So he has started to attack on the d4 pawn as well, rook to d8. So queen a1 and queen c7. So here pretty much, okay, so we cannot say that, let's say that's a pawn that is hanging on a7, so we cannot say like it is being like a given here. The reason being, like in case if white takes the pawn, then we can take it back, and then queen takes it, and there is a move like this, say rook a8. So of course there is an escaping square for white. Queen can go to c5, and queen into c5, and pawn into c5. When you look at this position, I mean like it looks like white is having an extra pawn, but the thing is we need to understand that it can be taken aback because there is an overloaded piece. Let's say for example for e4 there is a threat on e4, and the pieces are quite overloaded. Bishop on d3 is defending e4, and the rook on e1 is defending e4, and say both the knight on f6 and bishop on b7 is attacking it. So in case if black goes to rook c8 and attacks the c5 pawn, I mean like none of the piece can come in aid of that c5 pawn. So I mean like it has to go away. So we can take that pawn back. So this is one way of playing it. So here what happened is he didn't take rook into a7, instead he played h3. So for h3 he played a6, rook to c5, and for rook to c5 he played queen f4, and for queen f4 he played rook to e5. So there is an interesting idea here that white is going to plan for trapping the queen. So how is he going to trap the queen? Let's say if the rook was on c5, the queen can go back till b8 in order to retreat the queen from that particular f4 square, whereas rook to e5 is hindering all those options of getting back to the same diagonal. Meanwhile, how is he going to trap this queen? So given a chance, let's say if it was white to move here, I think we can pretty much play g3 here. The reason is that for g3 he cannot go anywhere else. He cannot go to g5, g4, I mean like g5, g4, h4 or anywhere, and the only move that which he can try is queen into f3. And the moment he takes queen into f3, pretty much we can move our rook to e3, and the rook is and the queen is trapped. So here black plays knight e7, and for knight e7 he played rook to a5. So again he played knight f6. So there is a chance of perpetual. I think like in case like if you wanted to go for a draw, I think like he can try for it. Maybe like black was looking for it. So what happens here is that when we look at this position, okay, so the position of the black queen was say on f4. It looks like there can be vulnerability as well, and so white on the other hand like has placed his pieces on better squares, and it is having some space advantage associated to it. So here then what happens? He played d5. This is a brilliant move here. So he has given this pawn break. So what happens now is that he took the pawn, and now what happens? The diagonal has opened for the bishop. So the bishop on d3 is now quite open. So he has sacrificed this pawn, and knight to e4, and now queen to d4. So now what happens is rook c8. So he brought his rook back to a1. So in order to have this maneuver of say rook b1 and rook b6 kind of, bishop c6, now he sacrificed the pawn number 2. So in order to gain the outpost on e5, so pawn on 2. Now knight goes to e5. So as long as the white pawn is going to stay on e5, it is not going to, the knight cannot go there. So he has sacrificed this pawn number 2. And now what happens is queen to f6 and f3. And slowly the pieces are retreating back, as you see, right? So I mean initially the queen went back and now the knight went back. So here he played rook b6, and slowly I mean like white is trying to inch in towards the enemy's camp, and bishop to e8. So he is retreating back, and now queen to e3 and say a4. So here he played knight to g4 and he is attacking the queen. So I mean like he has to move the queen. So the moment the queen moves, then he is hitting rook into e6. At this point in time, like I mean like it is quite evident that it is all about formalities that white will need to complete. So let's say knight into, queen into, bishop to f7. He played a brilliant move here, which is knight into h6. So he has to answer this check. So he cannot take bishop into queen. So pawn into knight is forced and queen into h6. And now what happens is that it is pretty much evident that h7, the bishop on d3 is much helpful at this point in time. Like he has opened this diagonal for the bishop with say the tactical idea of d5 and then followed by e5, and it paid off here. So queen to h6, queen to c7, queen h7 check, king f8, queen here. So the only move here is bishop to g8, and the interesting part here is that queen h6, queen to g7, and here he resigned the game. But you know what, the continuation can went on like this. Let's say queen goes back to d6, certainly the queen cannot come to e7 to defend it. King goes to f7 and queen e7 checkmate. So this is the round 1 which was played between Magnus Carlsen and Firouzja, and Firouzja is let's say we can assume him as a future contender for the world championships. So in 2019, like he played a game with Magnus Carlsen which was in a blitz tournament, okay, in the world blitz championships, and he was playing for white and Magnus Carlsen was playing for black. So what happened in that game is that Firouzja was having a bishop and 3 pawns, whereas like for black, Carlsen was having just a bishop. So even though he doesn't have enough material to win, so the game was announced that Firouzja has lost the game because Firouzja has lost on time. But even though with less, I mean like with no winning material, Magnus Carlsen has been awarded the point. The reason being, I mean there is an opportunity. Okay, if any case, let's say if there is a possibility to checkmate. Okay, in case like Firouzja takes moves the pawn to the promotion square, and if he takes knight, okay, there is a possibility for a checkmate option for Carlsen, and hence he was awarded the pointer. So I mean like Firouzja was I mean like devastated with this result, and I mean like, so I mean there people have started to say that I mean Firouzja can be a potential challenger for Magnus Carlsen in the upcoming world championships. I hope you would have liked this video, so we can see some of the other brilliant games which is going to come in the days to come. So I hope you like this video. If you like this video, you can like, share and comment. If you wanted to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to my channel Kishore Chess Mentor. Thank you.